Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Stranger Things Season 4, Episode 4. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with everything in Lenora. So we had the whole situation of Jonathan, Will, and Mike being sat down and told some version of what's going on. So it's like, right, you guys have to stay here. Ella's going off with Dr. Eleven's going off with Dr. Owens to try and get her powers back. And they want to contact her, want to try and contact everyone in Hawkins because it's like, cool, their friends are there, Mike's family is there, so everyone they care about is still in Hawkins and they're in danger. But it's like, right, there's the people in the government, in particular the military too, who want 11 because they think she's responsible, so they could be listening in. You try and contact them, that could lead to a whole situation, and it can make the situation go bust, and it could end up putting 11 in danger, so they can't even contact with them. They're kind of stuck there, and it's like, how can we trust you? Because they've had their situation with the government before, like everything that went down in season 1, to be fair, that was more so Dr. Brenner, but still. But it's like, they even acknowledge later on, it's like, yeah, Dr. Owens has always been good to us, but it's still at the end of the day, when it came to saving Will, it was never Dr. Owens who did it. It was everyone else. It was like his friends coming to save him. So it's like, and once again, it's like, it's going to be up to us to save the day, because none of them want to just sit back and relax, especially from Mike, where it's like, right, 11 wrote him a letter saying that she's going off to become a superhero again. And so Mike doesn't like just sitting around, especially with their friends are in danger, but he acknowledges that Will was right. He's like, right, I'm so caught up in like worrying about 11 that he was like apologizing for the way he's been acting, which was like, no, like I've been acting like a jerk towards 11, but he's like, no, like we need to be on the same team again. And it's like, as friends, as best friends, so let's get this done. So, because Jonathan's not going to sit around either, because he's worried about, Nancy, of course. So it's like, we got to get to Hawkins. That's the only way we can make sure everything is going to work out. Everything's going to be okay. So they call up Argyle. They're going to get him to deliver a pizza, but they're going to leave with him. But before that could even go down, some people show up shooting. Now, I don't know. They didn't sound like, because I feel like if they were Russian or something, they would have been speaking Russian. But maybe they didn't really have too much opportunity to speak. So I don't know whether they were like, but if they were like secret agents, how would they know to come after 11 in them? Like, how would they have all that information? So it has to be like some government people must have finally tracked or at least her last known area. But because these are Dr. Owens people, not people that are, so they're the ones that are defending them. So poor first guy got it, but that other agent, yo, that dude was putting in work. He was I was like, oh man, he's gonna get blasted. No, he's like, bam, bam, bam. I was like, yo, look at this guy soloing this. I'm like, cause we've never had a shootout situation like this. And once again, I'm not the cinematography nut, but the camera work here was so good. I'm sure, like, if you go back, you can be like, oh, this is where they broke. But like, they kind of did almost like just the way they handled the camera work. I doubt it was one take, but just like the moving of the camera, the moving of the characters and stuff, it just felt so smooth. And I was like, wow, it felt like a sequence out of an action movie. It was nuts. It's like, man, they are throwing everything in the kitchen sink into this season. Holy shit. Because prior to this, I'd say like season 3 has probably been my favorite. But like, to me, this show has gotten better and better with every season, with just like how expansive everything is. But once again, they're throwing everything. Like, that was a full-blown action movie sequence we saw. That was insane. And home dude got one shot to the gut, but he's still alive. Luckily, they were able to get into the car with Argyle and take off. So once again, I'm assuming those are the military people that are still hunting 11, and they were probably going to take the others hostage. Or, like I said, they could be Russian, but I don't think that's the case. Not unless there's a third party involved in this that we're not aware of. But yeah, I was like, once again, I praise that guy so much. That guy put in work. I was like, yo, that's a dope action sequence. And I was like, oh man, he's going to got to like his partner. It's like, unfortunately, he ended up being the one that opened the door. It would have been dope if both of them could have but it's like, nah, home dude was like, yo, I'm not caught off guard. I see what's happening. Bam, bam, bam. I didn't expect things to play out the way they did, because it was such an unexpected sequence. But it was so good. Okay, so there's that. Then let's tackle the whole situation with Murray and Joyce, as well as tacking on the whole situation with Hopper as well. So Murray and Joyce, obviously, last time we checked, they were in Alaska and they're meeting up with Yuri. And the moment he was like, oh, like Yuri, unfortunately, got, he loved bears, but one got his heart, punctured his heart. And I was like, you're Yuri, you're messing with them. And it's like, oh, he's kind of got a dark, twisted sense of humor. And he's talking about like, he referenced someone that took off with his wife or something like that. But he was like, I'm joking. I was like, I don't know if you were joking about that last part, like, laughing the pain away type of thing. But I was like, okay, and he wants to count the money and everything. At the same time, Hopper's making his move. So that was pretty dope. And so I guess, because we know one foot got messed up, I guess the plan was to mess up I guess the other one slowly got messed up too. Or maybe when Home Dude was hitting him last episode, it wasn't just one leg, he was hitting both legs. Because we saw Hopper take off one of them, but I mean, when we saw him doing the push-ups and stuff, he had taken off both as well. So I guess like both legs were, because when we see him take them off later on, both legs were jacked, both like ankles were jacked up. You're like, ugh. So sadly, there's that one dude that was paying too much attention as Anatov is the guy's name. Enzo. His real name's Anatov. I kind of think I wasn't sure what his name was last episode, but I love that he's like, oh, that knows the guy. You could tell he was going to be an issue, and luckily Hopper took care of business, but sadly the others were on top of him. That setting off that dynamite was pretty dope though, but they're still on his trail and they're like, right, don't let him get to the tree line because there's so much woods there, I think, and they feel like, and there's so many areas he could go, they could end up losing him. And even Anatol was surprised. It's like, right, first he gave him like a 50-1 shot, then he's like 101. It's like, damn American. I even love the other guy being like, crazy American doing what he did, and like everyone was legitimately cheering when Hopper got away. They're like, oh my god, look at the crazy American, look what he did, that's nuts, because once again they were told at the beginning, oh, you try and run, you're going to suffer very badly and you're going to die. So everyone was kind of cheering that he almost got away. Sadly, your boy Yuri betrayed Anatov, which, am I not surprised? No. Once again, I talked about this at that time too, was that Hopper had asked about him. I was like, oh, so this guy's a criminal. I was like, yeah, if he's a criminal, you can't trust him. So he ends up betraying everyone. He's like, oh, cool, I'm going to keep the $40,000 and the amount of money I'm going to get for turning in a prisoner who ran away and a corrupt guard and some Americans who worked against the KGB last year. So I'm reaping in all the awards because he ends up drugging both Joyce and Murray's. Because we do see spoilers, we do see Joyce and Murray on a plane, I believe, at one point. Once again, very interestingly, very Black Widow-esque. When they're going to like rescue Hopper, I thought that was them finding out that Yuri couldn't be trusted, knocking him out, or maybe something happened. This is before we found out about Yuri's deception. I thought maybe he's going to accidentally die or something, and they had to take the plane there. But it seems like that's not the case. They're probably going to be mid-flight when they're being taken to potentially Russia or whatever, or whoever's coming to pick them up. And I don't know, I was almost hoping like, oh, Murray being as cautious as he is, that maybe he wasn't drinking the coffee like he made it seem like, and he was ready to pounce. But it's like, no, and Yuri got both of them as well. So, and then we see, Anatov didn't get it as bad. Obviously, Hopper got it the worst. He got the ever-living piss beat out of him. So that sucks. So that all kind of blew up in their faces in that regard. So that really, really sucks. Really quickly, we get a little bit of an update with the whole Jason situation. We see him and his boys roll up at at Lucas's house looking for him, and then Erica kind of is like, right, he's not here. Tell him he owes me money and stuff like. So I'm curious, like, is Erica not going to be as like prevalent in the season, or maybe she's going to be here and there in the first half of the season, and then like the back half she's going to be in it a little bit more. I don't know, but so she's kind of out of the fold to this, in this extent, but maybe she's going to get mixed into everything. Like I said, later we'll have to wait and see, but I thought it was so now they know, like, right, something's up here, let's try and find Lucas. So that's gonna be an issue, which Lucas did run into the others after Max explained everything that was going on, now realizing she was the next target. So now everyone's worried, and I love that Steve brings up a lot of questions I had last episode. As so this thing is 50 years old, and Dustin explains to us, like, right, all 11 did was burst a hole through to she opened a gate to the Upside Down, but the Upside Down already existed. It could be thousands of years old, maybe even millions. It might be older than dinosaurs or whatever, which Steve's just kind of, whatever. But it's like, right, so this thing decides in the 50s, 59 specifically, to just kill a family and then bounce for 30 years. It's like, why do that? Why strike now? Like, has it been quiet? And that was my question last episode too. Has it been quiet the entire time? And my thing was, could it have struck in 79? Once again, everything at the labs that it seemed like 11's the one that was responsible. What if it was the Vecna attacking even back then, but 11 suppressed all of that because of the trauma and all of it, because it was her even young. It was her at an even younger age, so maybe that trauma like made her bury it just because of what she had to confront. So. Because they made, well, no, because we did see some of the bodies, and none of the bodies were missing eyes, so maybe it is leaning towards, like, oh, 11 did snap or something. I don't know. I feel like there's still more to that than we think it is, but maybe it is kind of, they're setting up that 11 is potentially a ticking time bomb, that the monster that, you know, once again, she wants to become a superhero, but she still views herself as a monster. That, you know, maybe in her mind, it's like, right, maybe it's not just becoming a superhero. Maybe I need to become a monster to protect the people I care about. I think she's leaning more towards the superhero angle of it all just because of what Dr. Owen said to her last episode, but still. So there's all of that. So they're trying to figure that all out while, like, keeping an eye on Max, who Max wrote everyone a letter. She wrote one for Steve, Dustin, Lucas, Mike, Will, and Elle, and also wrote one for, like, her family. Her is like, Dad, if you can track him down. Obviously, she signed one for Billy, and also one from her mom and, like, her Uncle Jack. So when it's all said and done, they're trying to keep an eye on Max, and she's like, right, you guys don't think your eyes are burrowed? And they're like, oh, no, what were you talking about? And they're, like, all kind of pretend like they're distracted. She's like, you can look at me now. And they're like, okay, cool, yeah, sorry. But Nancy and Robin are going off to try and get a meeting with Victor so they can find out more about the Vecna. And I love that they're pretending to be like these academics trying to learn, because they're going to go to Dr. Hatch to try and get a meeting with Victor. And I love, you know, Steve is like, no, I can still play the role. Like, are you really going to take Robin? And I love Robin's open. She's like, oh my God, you have what was it, a poster she had of? It wasn't Top Gun, was it? Yeah, it was it was a poster of Tom Cruise, which could have been a Top Gun poster, which, interesting timing, if that was a kid. I don't know I think it was a Tom Cruise poster. I don't think they specified it was a Top Gun poster. If it was Top Gun, because I think Top Gun came out 86, it would have came out that year, because it's 86, or is it, yeah, it's 86, and so far in the season, so I don't know, maybe it could, I mean, because he was working before, like, it's not like Top Gun was his first movie, so maybe it's like an older, whatever the case may be. I just, Tom Cruise poster, just interesting timing because of the Top Gun Maverick thing. But her also opening the music box, like, oh my God, there's a ballerina in here, and Steve's like, see, are you really going to take her along to pretend and play the role of academic? Once again, I love that we never saw this side of Robin, but I think it kind of shows how open and more comfortable, and once again, just like how they're able to expand upon the character of like, no, let's introduce some of her, just like every other character. Like, once we got to know them, like, Steve seemed like such a douchebag, cool guy, and then as the series has progressed, we've gotten to see like how weird and quirky he is too, and now we're just getting to see those lovable, quirky elements in Robin as well. So Nancy and Robin are, and I love that Robin sits in, like, she's like, oh, these clothes are itchy, the bra is pinching me, and I just feel like, yeah, you're gonna have to answer all the questions because I'm most likely gonna die from suffocation because of what I'm wearing. So they end up talking to Dr. Hatch, and he was kind of like, oh, you need to kind of go through these links to kind of be able to meet with someone like Victor. And I love that she went all in, and it's like when Robin gets in her bag, she gets in her bag, being like, right, the fact is, she's like, I've always been fascinated by the story about Victor Creel, and talked about her at this camp, and this one kid nearly hyperventilated because of it. But she was like, no, I was excited about it and understanding it and making it seem like, right, we put in the paperwork over and over again. That guy, like, if he was older and came here looking to meet with Victor Creel, he wouldn't have had an issue, but it's because women are seen as like, oh, we're not good enough in this field, and kind of showed her passion and excitement about it. It convinced the doctor to like work with them. And the moment that happened, I was like, the moment she messed up and was like, "Oh, Bradley," he's like, "I don't know a Professor Bradley." Oh, she meant Brantley. I was like, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta check in on something." I was like, "He's gonna look into your alibi." I was like, "You guys are gonna need to get out of here fast." They still end up getting caught, but they go and talk with Victor, and it was almost very Hannibal Lecter-esque. I mean, I'm sure it applies to everyone else, but the cells and everything, they weren't Hannibal-esque cells, but it just reminded me gave me Silence of the Lamb vibes, but. Obviously, this timeline wise, that hadn't happened yet. The book might have been out. I don't know when. I don't know off the top of my head when the book came out, but the movie came out. It was 1990, right? I forget off the top of my head. It was like, yeah, it was like 1990, 1991, something like that. But the moment we get to see Victor, I was like, wait, is that who I think he... And then he turns around, obviously his eyes, because he's actually in a trailer, but it didn't even correlate in my head until now, because he's in a trailer, he's only in for like 2 seconds. And when he turned around and he started talking, I was like, is that Robert Englund? Super was. I was like, oh my God. It's like, of course you're going to get Robert Englund. Here I am making all these Nightmare on Elm Street references, and you got the guy yourself. Of course, you got Freddy himself. Like, that's dope. One of the Freddys, because obviously there was a reboot with Jackie Earle Haley, because he played Freddy in the 2009 reboot. But yeah, like, Robert Englund's the Freddy most people will associate with. He's been Freddy, like, since the first Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's like, wow, that's actually pretty dope. It's kind of sucky because it's like, what would happen if Freddy sucked, but it doesn't excuse him, like, going off and killing a whole bunch of kids. It's also interesting, too, because it's like, right, Hawkins is the cursed town that it is, and the town that Freddy was from was cursed. It was coming after all the kids of the parents who, like, basically hunted him down and killed him, yada, 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 so on and so forth, right? So it's interesting. And also, like, he got mutilated in the regard of, like, what happened to him in the fire, but also I was wondering, like, oh, did the creature... did Vecna do that to him? But it's like, no, it seems like that was self-inflicted to try and be reunited with his family, sadly. But also, the actor who plays young Victor is who I thought it was. I brought it up last episode, I think. And I was like, is that the actor who plays Sam in Ozark? It super was. That's a tragic situation. He had come, like, this is like 14 years after he had come back from the war, and he was living, like, this was kind of a fresh start for him and his family. They loved the house. He's like, but we had 1 month of peace before shit really started hitting the fan. Whole bunch of dead animals, each one of them getting visited here and there, like this thing was tormenting them. And once again, why didn't go in for the kill immediately? It was like, I guess it needed to build up its strength. It needs to feed off your terror long enough. Or maybe it's trying to suck you dry of all your terror first. It's like, let me get all that first. Oh, good. Now I fed on you and I'm full. I'm going to kill you. Because also part of me was wondering, like, once again, I don't like reference the movie now just because it's like, yeah, once again, I want to say it was the director's a creep, but once again, I could be mistaken. But it's like I'll reference the monster itself, not really the movies, but like Jeepers Creepers, how every 23 years for 23 days it gets to eat. So I'm wondering, like, does this thing have its own stipulation? Does it kind of go in hibernation as well? Because at first I was about to say, do you think it's like every like decade or something? Because like first it struck in 59 that we're aware of, and then potentially, once again, that's just my theory of like maybe it struck again in 79, but that would explain now because now it's 86. Not less as time is going on, this thing's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, so it needs less and less time to strike back. Possibility, but maybe we'll find out there's something on that front. But Victor told the story about what happened to his family. He saw it happen to his wife first, and then eventually, because I think it's interesting because it seems like spiders seems to be this thing. So I'm wondering, is it using spiders to kind of keep an eye on people all over them? Because it makes sense, because like those tendrils that kind of go into it, that kind of connects it from the upside down into our world. But also like the spider motif keeps popping up. Because even at one point when Victor was like, oh, it's almost like that thing was hiding in a shadow. And as he was saying that, you see in the foreground a spider crawling up its web. So I'm like, I guess this thing is basically using it acts as a giant spider, and it has a whole bunch of webs connected to to our world, and that's how it like gets to people. Even though it's in the upside down, it's able to bridge that gap because of that. So, killing his entire family, that whole baby crib being on fire thing, I was like, what is that about? It's because he was in the war. He said that there was going to be, I forgot what he said, but basically he thought some bad guys were in a house. They bombed, they shelled the house, and he witnessed it. I was like, that is, of course, that's going to stick with you. And of course, that's some trauma that Vecna gets to use against him. So that's very heartbreaking. And so Victor, like, while he was in it being tranced, this thing was sadly killing his children as well. And he ended up being saved by the voice of an angel. And then he was like, yeah, but it wasn't an angel. It was a nightmare in itself. But I think the reason why he was, at first I was like, oh, was it something else leading you away? Kind of like a siren. It's like, no, it saved him. But he feels like rather than it being his salvation, it was his damnation, because he got spared. If it's like, if I hadn't followed that voice of that angel, I would have stayed there and I would have gotten killed by Vecna. It would have killed me and I would be with my family, because he tried to go back and be with his family later, but Dr. Hatch saved him. So we end up finding out that music is the key. Specifically, it seems like it has to be music that resonates with you. Because I guess he's a fan of either Ella Fitzgerald, Dream a Little Dream of, like that song, or just her as an artist, but it was able to reach him. So later on, when his Max is in trouble, I'm jumping around a little bit, they needed to use, maybe any song would have reached, but it needed to be something that was probably personal to her. Because I like that notion of a song, music can hit a brain in a way that words alone can't. So it's kind of like that thing of, you need to ground yourself, like something needs to both literally and physically and mentally ground you, because obviously this thing like floats you into the air first and then it breaks your bones. But focusing on the Max stuff this episode, I thought it was great. Her dropping off those letters and Vecna messing with her. Like, she thought she was having this very beautiful heart-to-heart with her mom, being like, everything's okay, and it turned out it was Vecna messing with her. It was like, that's super jacked up. Once again, it's like, it's that, I made that example before, like, once again, it's a combination of Freddy and Pennywise, because Pennywise loves messing with people like that, too. Because it's like being in a waking nightmare, so it's like Freddy, but also it's like Pennywise, because Pennywise can get to you at any point in the world, so it's like a real combination of the two. And it's got very much that Mike Myers, Jason Voorhees thing of like, oh, I don't have to run after you. I'm going to go slow and steady, go at my own pace. Because I feel like Freddy's always had the benefit of, because it's a dream, he can kind of pop up anywhere at any point in time. Same thing for Pennywise. So Max's, final stop ended up being her brother's grave, and Lucas is like, right, I don't need a letter, just talk to me, Max, just talk to us, we're here, we're there. Because that's the thing, the entire time Max hasn't talked to anyone, because we also find out this thing has a pretty small timetable, that apparently Chrissy was dealing with all this for about a week before she died. Fred, it was about 6 days, and with Max, it's been 5 days. So it seems like this thing is getting faster and faster. The turnaround in which it's going after people seems to be faster and faster, maybe. So I guess representing, once again, it getting stronger and stronger. But like I said, Max is internalizing a lot of stuff. Like, it is the thing of, she has so many people she could turn to, because these are the only people she can really truthfully talk to. She couldn't talk to her counselor about, because she'd have to keep up with the government story about what happened and everything, how Billy died and everything, even though it's like, they all know the truth. They're the only people she could talk to about it, but she was internalizing so much because she felt so guilty. Because she's like, in that time when you were like, if I had saved you, maybe things would have gotten better. Because we get a little bit more about her family situation, that Billy's dad left. It's like, right, he couldn't live in this world without you. I think it's like, despite their relationship and everything, I think it's just like, right, everything going, like his mom and everything, and that led to, I think, issues between Billy and his dad, which I still think his dad was an asshole about how he handled a lot of stuff. But he just couldn't live in this world without his own son, and so he ended up leaving. And the way Max talks about it, it's like, right, he left, well, because she even said he was an asshole too, so let's not make it seem like he was a saint. But it seems like things got worse. Like, her mom and him would fight a lot, and to the point, and it makes it sound like he left them with nothing, like whatever money or whatever he had, he didn't leave them any safety net, he just took everything, bounced, and that's why her mom is like working 2 jobs, like running herself racket just to take care of, like, they obviously had to move to a different house and everything, and And but Max blames herself because she's like, all I could do was sit there and watch you die. If I had moved, if I had done something, because no one is gonna ever know the truth about how you really died. That you died saving Elle, you saved me. Like, you saved the day in your own regard, but no one will ever know the truth. But for her guilt is, I should have moved. If I had saved you, like if I could have pulled you away, then maybe you would be everything would be right again. That maybe our family would still be together. I wouldn't be feeling this way. And it's like, yeah, we hated each other, but I thought it was beautiful that she was saying that she thought, like, if given enough time, she's like, I hated you, you hated me. But maybe she was like, I was hopeful that we had more time, that maybe we can make things right. We could become friends. We could even become real brother and sister. And sadly, they never got that chance. That chance was robbed from her. And that's why she feels so much guilt over it. Like, if I had moved, I could have done something. You probably would have ended up dead too. Billy made his choice, but, Max feels guilty about it. And even to the point that Vecna's using that against her. It's like, oh no, like making Billy come to her being like, oh no, you wanted me dead. Like that, just admit it, that's why you haven't opened up to any of your friends, because there's a part of you, because that's why she can't bring herself to talk about any of this. And because Vecna's twisting what's inside of her, but being like, oh, there's a part of you that wanted me dead. There's even a part of you that wants to follow me. As I don't worry, I'll bring your suffering to an end. And Max is trying to escape from Vecna, but she can't. And ultimately, she ends up kind of going to, I guess, where it is in the Upside Down. And we see that it keeps trophies. God, I think we saw Chrissy and we saw Fred. It keeps them as trophies of all of its victims. And it try to make Max join them. Because usually, I wonder, is this what it actually looks like? Because usually it manifests a world that makes your nightmare and trauma come true. But I wonder, is that really what it looks like when this thing drags you into that world? It's like where Max was eventually. That's what it really looks like, but it just kind of uses almost like a genjutsu, an illusion to make you see, like, the feed into the terror and the trauma of it all. So it made her see like she was still in a graveyard when in actuality she wasn't. She was already in this world. It just looked like that graveyard. So time was running out. Max was floating in the air, like the panickiness of going back and forth between Robin and Nancy, letting Dustin and the others know about the music being the way to potentially save Max, but her time is running out. And this thing is like, right, you belong here. Because the moment the music plays, a portal opens, and she could hear them, she could see them on the outside. But it's like, no, this is where you belong. And in that moment, Max started thinking about everything and everyone she cares about. And what Lucas says, I'm right here, we're still here. So it's like, right, I can't die because there's too many people. I have too much left to say. I'm going to be with them because she says, like, none of this is real. You're not here. And he's like, oh, yes, I am. But luckily, she got past him. He started throwing everything at her, and she ran. You're like, okay, it cuts to black. You're like, come on. And she made it. You're like, yes! Which, spoilers, kind of already knew it, but once again, the dangers of watching the trailer. I know that Max, I still was nervous, but I had to remind myself, like, right, you kind of already knew Max was going to make it, because, spoilers, she's with them when they go investigate the haunted house that Vecna went after Victor and his family in the 50s. So I was like, right, I kind of already knew, but it still made me kind of nervous, because I was like, well, because you never know. Trailers lie. That might just be a Marvel thing of lying, but you never know. Trailers could be a little deceptive in certain regards, so I didn't know, but I was like, I kind of knew, but kind of didn't know, so I didn't know if they, but it's like, no. Either way, it was beautiful, and everyone's like, oh my God, you're still here. She's like, I'm still here. So I was like, oh God, I was getting that Max stuff was beautiful and powerful, and they nearly lost her, but everything's okay. Like, this is the first victory against this thing, so it's definitely going to get really interesting to see where everything takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.